Hello, my name is Ebony Omolara, and this is my YouTube channel where I share all my creative projects as well as my advice for creatives, entrepreneurs, and young leaders. And today's video is all about how to spot or notice toxic leadership or unbalanced leaders. And unfortunately, not everyone is in a space and position where they can notice all the toxicity within the leadership realm of management and leave and go and start their own business. But by making you aware of the things to spot through the things that I've experienced, I hope that it will help you to create a safe work environment in terms of pointing out these things and getting something done about them. And so I have 9 brief work experiences that I'm going to go through. I'm not going to tell you guys the full story, but mainly the lesson that I learned about leadership and what I took away from them as a business owner now so that I don't implement it. And so the first one is McDonald's. So I worked at 2 different McDonald's, and then the first store, it was my first job ever. And the only thing that I can remember from that experience is not being a person to my manager. To my manager, it was just, okay, I've got to play this game and I need all these pieces. And so if the piece isn't working, I'm just going to throw it out. And as much as it makes sense to get the job done, it doesn't make sense because you're not dealing with objects, you're dealing with people. These are people with emotions who go through different experiences, especially because I was like 17, 18. There's obviously different things going on that I didn't really know how to navigate. And there was just no cause for that. I feel like my manager there would very much make me do all of the work and train me in all of these areas, but he would never promote me. And I watched my co-workers get promoted alongside me, and the reason why I can never say. For me, I could pinpoint certain things, but we don't know for sure if it was that. And so what I wanted to take away from that experience itself is knowing that not everybody who's working their job and leading a team cares about their team. Some people just care about delivering the results that they've been asked to deliver. And that's something to be mindful of, because if you need a mindfulness break or something like that, they're not going to understand that, because to them it's just, you don't want to do the work, okay, get out of here. The second experience was another McDonald's, but with this McDonald's, I was 19 years old and I didn't know anything about HR, right? And so there was an incident with a colleague at work, and he had touched me inappropriately, and I let my managers know, and they gave me 10 days off work and then just told me to come back as normal. They didn't report it or anything. And now looking back, I can see what a miscarriage of justice that was, because something should have been done. I was crying my eyes out about being touched by my colleague. And yeah, it was just, well, give her some days to calm down and then let her come back into the same exact place and she's not going to feel safe. They didn't know that I'd experienced sexual abuse before, and I didn't know about HR. So in both of those things, like, there was just no accountability. And it just wasn't really good. And it just showed me that they didn't care about my well-being and my safety. It was just about the fact that I was good at my job. But I didn't go back to work there after those 10 days. And that's where I actually moved to my next job, which was a restaurant I was working at before I went to university. And they had just opened a new restaurant, right? And so the team's just been brought on. We've just learned all the recipes, and it was really fun and exciting. And after the launch, maybe like a couple of weeks later, they've just come and fired bears of us because they don't need us anymore. And it felt like they kind of knew what they was going to do. Now, in that position, I had spoken to my manager about the fact that I was going to be moving to uni in that September, and I started working there in July. And so between July and September, I believe by the end of July or the start of August, obviously they've just let me go, but in that position, that was the only security I had to get me to uni. It actually really messed me up a lot. And it was just realizing that they don't care about that. For them, that was their startup. It had nothing to do with everyone else and what that job was doing for them. And so, yeah, not all of these things are like the worst things in the world that have been done, but it's things that I experienced through work and that I had to change my perception of what coming into work relationships is. People don't care about your personal situation all the time, and you have to be the one to do that. The next one was when I was at university and I was working at this restaurant. Now, this was the most like family job I'd say I'd ever had, because I was working in a Nigerian restaurant for a Nigerian man, and that guy was like my uncle, like my dad. So he trusted me a lot, and a lot of the things that I did in that restaurant, I just learned how to do it from either paying attention or realizing, hey, we can do this way. And there was an incident where he had gone on a business trip and the chef just decided he wasn't coming to work that day. And so now you've got me, a university student, I don't have any experience in restaurant management, just what I've been doing there. And both of them weren't there, and so I had to cook the food, I had to clean the restaurant, I had to service to the customers, I had to do all of those things at once. And by the time my boss got back, luckily he came back on the day that I was just like, do you know what, enough is enough. And I was crying in the kitchen because I was cooking like 3 different meals at once. Customers are dinging the bell, there's plates and stuff that needs to be cleared. I just got really overwhelmed. And whenever I speak about that day with him, he's like, oh yeah, that day, first he called me dramatic, and then years after, when I started doing different types of work and thriving at that, he phoned me and he was like, oh yeah, I'm working with this other young lady the way that I worked with you. Hopefully I can make something of her as well. And I was just like, you didn't make anything of me. I was put in a position where I had to rise up. I could have easily just left your restaurant to burn down on those days, but that's just not who I am. And so there's people who feel like they're responsible for who you are, for your success. Now, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't give him any of the credit at all, because if not for that opportunity, I wouldn't be as self-sufficient as I am now, and I wouldn't have so much knowledge about different things. But the way in which he did it was like it just wasn't great. The way that he'll speak about me in commentary is like, oh, I'm his protege and he taught me everything I know. And that's not true. Because if it was true, in the time, it's like he wanted to show up for me in that way then, when it makes you look good. But then in the times when, okay, I came to an event, like a family celebration, and when I was leaving, I didn't even have any problem with going home by myself and walking like 45 minutes to my house. But when I was leaving, he was like, oh, that's why I like you, Ebony, because you don't cause any problems. You'll just find your way home. And it was like, do you think I don't feel unsafe? Do you think I want to be like this? It's just because I have to. There's no one there to make sure I get home safe and all of those things. And so I had to learn to stop giving so much to that relationship and realize that he's comfortable taking from me. And yeah, that's what that was. The next place that I was working was, obviously I had to get some of the jobs, but I kept in the main ones. So I was working at this betting shop, Casino, and my boss there and the assistant manager and one of my colleagues, all of them were white women, and they used to make racist jokes. And because I wasn't in a position of being able to lose my job, I would just laugh along with them, but it wasn't funny. And I feel like the role that they was in, the fact that they're not normal workers anymore and they're in management positions, made them feel like they could say and do whatever they wanted to. So one of them said the N-word. She didn't call me the N-word, but she said it. And then the other one, she made a joke about me bowing down to my master. Just silly stuff. And then my main boss, like, she just had this, she didn't just do it with me. I noticed how she did it with other people first, where she's like, well, I'm the boss, so I don't know who they think they're, you know, that uppity character. And when you get into that space, it's like all your decisions aren't about what's best for the team or what's best for the job to get done. It's now about you and how you're feeling. And that can be, it's not healthy. Because again, now we're all caught up in your ego game. And I don't know where your mindset is based on where you are in your healing journey, what you've been through, all of these things. You could be taking your 40-year marriage out on us and we have no idea. So just being mindful of things like that and not taking what people say and do personally. The next one is where the lines really got crossed between work and personal, and I started taking stuff personal. Because with this lady, I was volunteering, but I was the best volunteer that she ever had in her life. And I didn't even know anything about what was going on with the funding and people trying to get more and all of these things. So I've been told I'm getting paid a certain amount, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. Now, one thing that I didn't include in the story beforehand because I didn't think it was relevant was one of the guys that she brought on to do for some contracted work. He moved to me. Bearing in mind, this guy is older than my dad. So I've gone to her and the other guy that we work with. And I'm like, you know, that old man is trying to move to me. And I'm like disgusted. And they're like laughing it off or whatever. And then later on, someone tells me that that old man that was moving to me, she was chatting to him. So this is grown folks' business, by the way. I'm like, what, 21, 22 by this point. And so I know nothing about that. I'm just saying, why is he on my WhatsApp? Like, can you guys tell that this is not what the work relationship is? And so after that is when she started kind of moving funny. And there was the situation that I speak about sometimes when I didn't have period pads. And so I asked her if I could get paid early. And she ignored me for a week. She still let me put in all the work that I was supposed to put in. The events went amazing. And then the weekend after the final event, she emailed me to say, can I come in? I said, sorry, I'm in Birmingham. She said, you're fired. You're not getting paid. And all of these weird things. And there was the other part of, she gave me funding for the volunteers because I was a volunteer coordinator. And she did not tell me what to do with it, except to cover food and travel. And so I made sure all the volunteers was fed at every event. And I also made sure they got their travel, but I paid for them to get Ubers because Ubers in Coventry are cheap. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. So when I handed in all the spreadsheets and stuff of how the money was spent, she said it was void and told everybody that I stole it. When I didn't steal it, because if I did, then I would have had period pads. But yeah, there was that situation. And so being mindful of people who, cross the boundaries between personal life and work life, especially when it comes to people who get funding and run the organizations themselves, they are responsible for how that money's spent. And that was the first example of where I saw a misuse of funding, but I saw that twice more with two more organizations. The second one, they would bid for funding, get it, and then figure out how they was going to deliver the project. And so by the time they're figuring out how they're going to deliver the project, it's nothing to do with the money, because the money they've decided is for this, and this. And so when they're giving me these projects, I'm doing it with little to no resources, because that's how I know how to survive. And all of those projects went so extremely well, you wouldn't even know that. And so for that second organization that was misusing their funding, it was very much about how things look on the surface. So making sure that everything, the face of the company and the company itself has a good reputation, but it doesn't necessarily matter the impact that they're actually having. When it came to the kind of kids that I wanted us to go for, because it was set up to face knife crime, you're not affecting any children who are affected by knife crime or that kind of environment, by drugs and violence. You're just helping kids who need something to do on the weekend because their parents are at work. And it's not even that some of their parents can afford to send them to other clubs and some of them can't. For the ones who can't, I understand why it's important for them to engage. But for the ones who, like, their parents can't even give them money to get to somewhere, those are the people that you need to be helping. So for me to be hearing from one person at the firm that you've just received £10,000 a donation to continue the work that you're doing, but then you're coming to me and saying, oh, we're not paying for food and travel anymore because we can't afford it, it doesn't make sense. For the fact that when it comes to the project stuff, it's, oh, you have to use the money that we've given you to pay for it. But then when it comes to let's get celebratory drinks, the card is tap, tap, tap in, no decline. Do you get it? It's people not having their priorities straight. And not all people who are in position of leadership have passed the test to say, are you going to be responsible with this? And I feel like there should be some kind of way to do that, but we'll have to figure that out later. The third organization was Again, another false use of funding. So they had funding for a project, but they wouldn't say anything about how that was spent. And anytime you ask questions about it, I was working on this project. I was brought onto the project late because they delivered it late. And when I asked anything about the funding, I was told to shush. So when I've been told that I'm getting paid, then I've started doing the work and I've been told that I'm not getting paid. And I've said, okay, cool, I'm going to finish working on the project because it's important to me and the person who the project is for. It turned into a bullying situation, and now I'm getting cornered in a small little tight space and being told not to speak up about my truth, that nobody needs to know what's going on, and all of these weird funny things. And she's brought other people in to make sure that Ebony doesn't speak. And that was the most toxic, that was the most terrifying. In that job, again, another thing that's been created to help disadvantaged kids, and there was one disadvantaged kid in particular who I've spoken about before as well, and his story would make me cry. And to hear my manager say, oh, he's too far gone, it broke my heart. And I really didn't believe that he was too far gone because of the conversations that I'd had with him. But again, not everyone who's in these positions of social work, youth work, like, they don't actually care, and it's scary. Because they're driving their cars, new plate cars, I don't know what car she has because I'm not good at cars. I don't know about the material world that well. But for you to say that there's no funding to help these kids with this, and this, but then you're absolutely cushy on the funding that's coming in, for you to say that there's no funding to pay the people that you're actually working with, that you agreed to pay, but then you're still going on yearly work trips, it doesn't make any sense. And this is why I say toxic leadership and unbalanced leaders is not going to help us create any type of change. This is all about social justice and social change. These programs, these charities have been created to help people, but the people running them are only concerned with helping themselves. And it's just not good. The last kind of leader that I worked with was someone I brought in to work with me thinking we're building in the same way. And so I learned very quickly that we're not. That as I'm pointing out to him what I experienced with these organizations, and as he's starting to experience it himself, there's some people who go through these injustices and decide that they're going to join in and not beat them. And that was the last one. And so working with him, it was all about clout. It was all about the way that it looks on the outside. It was all about making sure the image was good and not actually making sure that we deliver on the impact that I wanted to impact. And the way that I know that our intentions were different is because as soon as something fell through and everything wasn't going to plan, you turn around and you try to start taking things away from people, taking opportunities away from people, saying this and that about them so that they can't progress anywhere. To me, if you're a healthy leader, you know that you don't need to compete with anyone else in that way. That's plain simple jealousy. And so me going through all these experiences made me never want to work with anybody again. But I run a business. How's that even going to work? Even if I had to go back to work, like, how it wouldn't help me in any way. And so by looking at these things and saying, okay, what kind of traits were in these people that made this happen, and being aware of that is what's helping me to move forward now, because I know that I'm aware of who not to work with, and I just want to make sure that other people are clued up as well. Yeah, that is everything for this video. I hope that the point of what I was trying to say got across, and it doesn't just sound like I'm moaning about all these work experiences, because I could care less. Not even I could care less. I've transmuted all of that into what kind of leader do I want to be. And so that's what I'm here to do. Young Souls Creative Leadership is about teaching young people how to be leaders, and not in a toxic way, because there are many, many, many people who are not guiding us properly, if I'm being honest. But yeah. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you very, very, very soon. Make sure you check out my music and other creative stuff. And I'm EO.